brought to you by Jumpin' the Channel, a skateboard documentary now playing at dhshredder.com. When I was a young boy, my father said, work hard, take care of business, stay out of trouble, and know who your enemies are. You can have nice things, get a nice career, meet a girl, get married, buy a house, start a family. So, I grew up. Played baseball, rode skateboards, got the girl, graduated from high school, signed up for the selective service, gonna join the military and learn how to fly helicopters. Got another girl. She loved me just like pancakes. Injured my foot while skateboarding doing the frontside boneless air. So now I've got a sports injury. I can't meet the requirements for boot camp. Unable to join the military, I joined a punk rock band, then got a job at United Parcel Service and became a full-time package driver. This was a union career with the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Well, instead of fighting for freedom in the military, I'd end up fighting not just for the Teamsters, but for every working family in America. We'd win a national contract and strengthen America's labor force. I'd make the cover of the Los Angeles Times Foothill Leader edition in 1997. By 1998, I'd find myself embattled in a wrongful termination case against United Parcel Service and Liberty Mutual for physical disability discrimination in violation of public policy, interference with a third-party contract, and conspiracy to induce breach of employment. I'd have to battle it out with Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, a billion-dollar global law firm with 1,200 lawyers. That's what it took to separate me from my career, while everyone else involved got to keep theirs. I would end up standing in the unemployment line, where I'd actually win my unemployment benefits. Well, how's that for growing up so far? Let's carry on. I had to come up with some ideas, so I released The Bad Religion Riot of 1990 on the VHS, and then again on DVD way back in 2001. Now, during the same time period, I entered in the Slam Dance Film Festival in 1997, where I'd be rejected. Then, I'd enter in the CMJ Music Fest in 1998, where I'd be rejected. Then, I would propose a treatment to MTV in 1999, where I'd be rejected. So I was rejected twice from the film festival circuit and once by MTV. I refused to be rejected a third time over a film entitled LA's Magical Moments with Bad Religion, The Dickies, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Thelonious Monster, and Jane's Addiction. This film would not be accepted by anyone, anywhere. I would lock this one in the video vault and move on. Next! Right into the beauty and grace of the lovely Gwen Stefani, where she directs me to follow her while she plugs in with her glue gun, and together we make one of the greatest rock and roll films on planet Earth.
He's a dickwhack with a six-pack, a freaking meathead like Wright said Fred. Smashed his girl in the face, now she's owning the place. One black guy she's already been told once.
With great tragedy comes great strength. Strike me down and I'll become stronger. I decided I'd be an actor. I'd work on the set of HBO's Carnival, where I'd get 3 SAG vouchers. I came in on episode 5 of the first season. By the second season, I was SAG eligible. In this classic photo, I'm standing right under the A in HBO's Carnival. And yes, I'd get the girl again. Then I'd get my Screen Actors Guild producer's pension plan. It was flatlined, zeros across the board. I wasn't used to seeing these numbers. I mean, I was making $70,000 a year on a full-time corporate job. So I had to do something. I had to be more proactive. What did I do? Well, a few years earlier, I had applied at FedEx, where I was offered a full-time position, only to be told this. Dear Richard, thank you for your application for employment. Unfortunately, while you appear to have a fine background, we have decided to consider other candidates whose qualifications are more applicable to our current needs. Therefore, we are unable to further consider you as an applicant for employment with our company at this time. Well, I've had just about enough of this crap. Let's carry on, shall we? All right. I was highly recommended by FedEx supervisor Tom Reagan. He loved my qualifications, and get this, he was my manager over at United Parcel Service. He had a perfect route for me in Burbank. How about that? So what's going on with FedEx and UPS? Well, I guess we'll never know. I went ahead and made a phone call, tried to get a hold of Tom, and well, it was 2003, and he had already moved on, just like we're gonna do. So, seeing zeros didn't sit too well with me. I liked seeing numbers. I had a 10-year plan to earn $1 million from 2005 to 2015. I was sick and tired of being kicked in the balls by corporate America. I was gonna do it my way. So I went out and signed up with the Dootson School of Trucking, where I had a great career opportunity just waiting for me to transport mobile broadcast television trucks all over the 13 western states and sometimes Chicago. My first class was in January of 2005 with a guy named Gary. He was an older dude that trained all the UPS, FedEx guys that came through there before those companies started their own in-house training courses. He went with me down to the DMV in Montebello, where we took the road test and did the in-cab and walk-around inspections, where I'd passed the test with flying colors, and in March of 2005, I got my Dootson School of Trucking Certificate of Attendance. My next plan of action was to put myself through pilot school, earn my credentials, and become a helicopter pilot. In my spare time, when I felt like flying around, of course. In 2005, at 40 years old, we were celebrating a great comeback. It only took 7 years to bounce back from a major upset with a bunch of foul plays from UPS, FedEx, Liberty Mutual, and the state of California. After all the heavy lifting and against all odds, I had successfully landed a commercial driver's license right before my birthday. I had a restrictive endorsement, code 75. It's limited to a bus designed to carry not more than 15 passengers, including the driver. A fantastic credential to have, and only works in my favor when I acquire my pilot's license. Well, with hard work, you can have nice things. I certainly did. I had a really nice driving record. Just check this thing out. It's impeccable. Completely organic. I have the commercial license. I have a great endorsement. I have a perfect driving record. I'm in great health. I don't do drugs. I'm transporting $1-million mobile television trucks all over the country. And last but not least, I'd get the girl. Well, during the winter of 2005, I'm transporting a mobile unit from Los Angeles all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee, just outside of Ranger, Texas, during a major cold snap where my brake lines would freeze solid, break in half, and I would coast right into Freddy's Garage and Wrecker service.
Fire pressure.
Well, thanks to my training from my instructor Gary over at the Dootson School of Trucking, he trained me how to accurately identify a problem and execute the perfect escape plan. Thanks to Dootson, we made it safe, we fueled up, and headed out. Little did I know that my 10-year plan would be hijacked by forces far beyond my control.
pulls out a can of mace. The cops are surrounding their place. Goes to jail, she's out on bail.
While sitting in my brand new truck in front of the place where I stayed when I was in town, I'd be arrested for having a high pulse and being in possession of a commercial Class A driver's license. The arresting officer actually said, all commercial drivers are substance abusers. It was a beautiful Monday afternoon, about 5 o'clock, sunny and clear. I asked the officer, well, how is it that I'm a suspect when I've got a perfect driving record and I have no wants and warrants? He accused me of being on a controlled substance. He didn't know what it was, but he was going to find out because he was a drug expert. He told me if I cooperated and went down to the medical center and gave a blood draw, that he wouldn't add additional charges and I'd be free to go. I'd go to court about a month later, wasn't allowed inside the courtroom, wasn't allowed to see the judge. I was told, don't call us, we'll call you. And well, here we are 14 years later, and the disposition date is still unknown, and the results are still unknown. This was a major upset. It took the wind out of my sails and destroyed the hearts of some hardened men, my father and my stepdad. Now, real quick, I think the problem the American people would have with this is you got a guy in a brand new truck, everything pans out, he's squeaky clean, his driving record's clean, and you're accusing him of being on a controlled substance because he's in possession of a commercial Class A driver's license. Okay, so that would be considered a violation of our Fourth Amendment rights. Okay, we've established that, it's well established, but it continues to be violated. Well, if I became a constitutional lawyer, I'd file my own case. Well, when I went down to the police station to get copies of the arrest reports and the blood test results, there weren't any. So how do you sue when the case is covered up? I guess you don't. Little did I know that this arrest would be the beginning of a profile that would cause more problems in the following year to come. And if I may borrow from a good friend of mine in the entertainment industry, he would say that this is what they call
a massive, swirling, sucking eddy of despair in an ever-blackening universe. How do you like that box of chocolates, Mr. Fix-It?
For the first time in my life, I didn't get the girl. Well, after that terrible experience with the police, I guess you could say I was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. You can tell by the look on my face I'm not too happy. In fact, I'm disenchanted. I knew that the arrest would remain on my record and that it was going to be a difficult process when applying for these major broadcast television companies, especially in transportation. Now, I'm going to have to disclose in the interview and application process that yes, I have in fact been arrested for a controlled substance with no conviction. Well, I picked myself up, dusted myself off, and hit the road. So in the winter of 2006, going into 2007, I took a few last runs before the truck was sold, traveling through ice and snow, which was one of my favorite parts of mobile broadcast television. Well, that day would come, and I would apply at Advanced Management Services down in Buena Park, a company I found online who needed a driver to help transport their MRI units. I usually ended up transporting a 580 kilowatt generator. It provided enough power to power an entire residential city block. It was a great group of people to work for. We were helping people that were disabled and injured and they couldn't travel far. We'd come to them. We'd travel to our destination, park and power, ramp it up and ramp it down, and then move on to the next town. Well, with that great experience, I had enough confidence to apply at both NEP Super Shooters and Western Studio Service, where I disclosed my arrest record. Well, much to my surprise, I got the job hauling movie sets. It almost felt like I was doing a litmus test experiment. You know, having to constantly disclose a fake crime with no convictions or results. Well, the positive visualization I was putting into the universe was coming back. I got a package in the mail from NEP Super Shooters on August 22nd, 2007. Well, how exciting. I gave them a call, told them I would be available after the Labor Day weekend and I'd be in touch. I had a visit with the engineer in charge at their Bexel location in Burbank, California. Looking forward to a great future. But by March of 2008, I'd find myself standing in the unemployment line along with a $14,000 legal defense team. Labor Day weekend, Monday morning, 2:45 a.m., September 3rd, 2007. Traveling from a very busy work week and a very busy work weekend. Worn out, tired, thirsty, and hungry. Gonna make a pit stop at my place, get a few hours of rest, get up at 6 a.m., start getting things together for my great meeting with NEP Super Shooters. The future looked bright ahead. As I'm traveling, I spot the CHP waiting for the light to turn green. He's got his left-hand blinker on. I'm grateful that he's busy and he's got somewhere to go. Now, I'm traveling 45 miles per hour like I always do. Coming down that grade, it might appear that you're going a little faster, especially if you're sitting in a stationary vehicle watching someone drive past you. I cross his path. Now, I'm unaware that he's gauging my speed at 60 miles an hour, which would be completely impossible because I'm going 45 miles per hour. I'm well aware of what's at stake here, so I'm not messing around. What happens next is completely baffling. He gets up on my ass for 32 seconds with his high beams on before he lights me up. I think, and I knew at the time, that he was probably profiling me and finding out that I was arrested back in 2006 for a controlled substance. Well, I cross his path, and the low-speed chase is on.
Richard always sings it for me. Richard always uses his hand. Richard, make it.
You can put the water bottle down. Nothing's going to help you now. I was profiled for being out on the highway at 2:45 in the morning, then accused of driving under the influence with a DUI refusal. This wasn't a dream. It was a ding-dang nightmare.
A massive swirling, sucking eddy of despair.
got a can of mace. Cops are surrounding their place. Goes to jail, she's out on bail. Hey baby, let's ice cream me a sandwich and make me some beer. He's a dick whack with a six-pack. He's a dick whack with a six-pack. Dick whack with a six-pack. He's a dick whack with a six-pack.
Nope. Well, let's check the sky map. From the view, you can see on the right the CHP black and white. You can see the arrows. It's southbound Sunland, and you can see where I make a right and then a right. The CHP would follow me for nearly a half a mile with the high beams and floodlights on. He'd light me up right at the turn, and then I'd turn, unlocking out a place, which he called a private driveway in his police report. Now, with part of that police report, it would read, based upon my training and experience, the subject's poor driving observed by Sergeant, and there's a redaction, and the objective signs of alcohol intoxication, I form the opinion that White had been operating a motor vehicle while under the influence of an alcoholic beverage. Well, I don't know about you, but I would guess that 300 million Americans would disagree with that opening statement. I don't think that there's anyone on planet Earth that would have excellent, perfect driving skills while being tailed at 45 miles an hour in the dead of night with full blaring floodlights and high beams, washing out the driver and completely blinding them. And to top it off, if I'm going 60 miles an hour in a 45 mile per hour zone, what took them so long to light me up? So naturally, they placed me under arrest, and then they read me the chemical test admonitions and asked me if I would take the test, to which I stated, no, I will not perform either of those tests. I want to talk to my lawyer. They towed my truck and transported me off to jail. At 42 years old, I had a perfect criminal record. 0 all the way across the board, except for that one misdemeanor booking you see over there in the left corner there, under bookings. I'd guess you could say there was no there. So now I have 2 manufactured crimes on my record. One of them with absolutely 0 evidence, and 14 years later, we still don't have a disposition date, conviction date, or results date. Okay, well, the officer that blinded me with his high beams and floodlights for 32 seconds, just under a half mile, made a recommendation that the report be forwarded to the Los Angeles City District Attorney's Office for review and prosecution of me for the following charges: driving a motor vehicle while under the influence of alcohol, a misdemeanor, and refusal to submit to a chemical test. This is the part where you knock me over the head with a blunt object and we fall into a nice dream sequence.
You can put the water bottle down. Nothing's going to help you now.
Nothing's going to help you now? Sounds manufactured to me. Let's see if I can get help from John's Towing to get my truck out of the impound yard. So I jump in my Jeep and I'm going to go retrieve my property. I get down to the impound yard and I present my notice of stored vehicle slip. I'm told by the impound yard that my truck has a 30-day hold on it. Come back in 30 days. I said, how can it have a 30-day hold on it? They said, the CHP said to hold it for 30 days. I said, well, it's not impounding, it's simply stored. There's a difference. They said, sorry, we can't help you. I said, okay, I'm going to call my lawyer, and I walked out the door. As I walked out the door, I heard them say, lawyer? You have a lawyer? So I call my lawyer. I'm standing out front. He gets on the phone, says, give me their number. stay on the line, go back inside, and wait. So that's exactly what I did. I hear the phone ring. I hear my lawyer say, if you don't release the man's truck, we're going to investigate you and take legal action against your company. They hang up, and I had my keys in my hands within 5 minutes with an apology saying, oh, we made a mistake. We thought it was a Ford. And here's a robotic laugh just for good measure. Ha 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 ha. Very funny. Ha 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 ha. These people were trying to pull a fast one or game the system. It's a $35 a day rate. Multiply that by 30 and you get the picture. I paid my lawyer in installments, a total of $14,000, to take this case to trial. So I chose option B. This was a setup from day one, October 2nd, 2006. Well, that's exactly how I felt. Couldn't put my thumb on anything, but I knew there was something wrong. Something terribly wrong when I got this from the state of California. From the Superior Court of California, the County of Los Angeles, the people of the state of California versus Richard Allen White. A misdemeanor complaint. Well, crap. They couldn't get me in 2006 for their imaginary high pulse / possession of commercial driver's license / magical blood test that there were no results. So it's all fun and games until the cops show up. The allegations of prior convictions? Well, there are none. Well, except for the new one that's sitting there waiting in the queue. Boy, am I on the edge of my seat telling this story. Just wait until you hear what the DMV pulled off. And it really wouldn't be that big of a surprise. I knew all of the tripwires going into this thing. I was well aware of if you refused, your license would get taken away and suspended for a year. There's only one problem. Show me the man, and I'll find you the crime. These were extreme adversarial conditions. I had to exercise my Fourth Amendment rights. So on February 5th, 2008, we went to trial. It would be postponed, and it was pushed to April 23rd of 2008. Count 1, the DUI 23-152A, was dismissed due to a plea negotiation where all alcohol-related charges were dismissed. I agreed to and entered a plea of no contest to Vehicle Code 23103, commonly referred to as a dry reckless, and I was sentenced at the time. Pay the fine of $150. On the next day, I'd go and get my DMV printout. One was a DUI and the other was a dry reckless, both on the same day of September 3rd, 2007. I'd notify my attorney, and they'd get the ball rolling with what is called a nunc pro tunc, a now for then, meaning that they'll change the current record to reflect the original correct record as it should have been in the first place. The nunc pro tunc order was prepared June 19th, 2008 by the clerk, it appearing to the court that through inadvertence and clerical error, the minute order of April 23rd, 2008, in the above entitled action does not properly reflect the court's order. Said minute order is amended, nunc pro tunc, as of that date as follows, by striking in its entirety the minute order of April 23rd, 2008, and replacing it with the following. The defendant entered a no contest plea as to count 2 only, a violation of Vehicle Code Section 23103A, a dry reckless, non-alcohol related. All alcohol related charges were dismissed. The court and the judge had identified the mistake, assuring me and my attorney that the record was true and correct. I didn't know it at the time, but I was standing up for the U.S. Constitution and our Fourth Amendment rights. Now, what I was doing is being proactive in making sure that my record reflected the correct conviction as per the order of the court. I was really happy to catch that mistake. I hadn't gone back to work yet, and I didn't need a DMV printout to show any future employers false and inaccurate information that would cause me harm and be detrimental to my career. Having a DUI charge that was dismissed by the court still reflected on your record. Well, that was fantastic. We got it fixed. So, whew, to that one. July 30th, 2008. A few of my old television buddies said, "Wait, we need a cameraman for Pepperdine University School of Law, a conversation with Justice Samuel Alito, lawyering and the craft of judicial opinion writing." Well, how about that? I'm Justice Samuel Alito's cameraman for the evening, along with Kenneth Starr, who was also on the panel. Wow, what a fantastic discussion. Afterwards, I got to meet both Kenneth Starr and Samuel Alito. I'd share with them what happened. I said, it was really expensive, cost me $14,000. I said, "Thanks for having me as your cameraman." Ken Starr shook my hand and said, "You did the right thing. It sounds like you had a great attorney. Thank you for making me look good." I thanked him, turned, and shook Samuel Alito's hand, and he said, "Thanks for making me look good." After all was said and done, I'd get my license back. In April of 2009, I was back in the saddle with my old pals who mostly focused on college sports. And we'd head on down to Manhattan Beach for the St. John Smith Pro Beach Volleyball Tour. Next stop, Huntington Beach for more pro beach volleyball. I'd get my business cards together and start handing them out. As a freelancer, I was looking for work, was still on great terms with NEP. They weren't hiring at the moment, but they'd keep me in mind. Of course, I had to put them on hold with a, family crisis. In the meantime, I'd be taking a truck out to the Atlanta, Georgia Dome, Atlanta, Georgia. I was working alongside everybody in the business. Game Creek Video, F&F Productions, Touring Video. Love these guys. They did the Vans Pro Tech pool party for a couple seasons. I spoke with the EIC from Lions Video and Mira Mobile Television. I'd end up getting a call from the Mobile TV Group, where I got the job. I'd have to fill out the new employee information. We did a phone interview, and I found out that I was referred to these guys by my very own EIC, the engineer in charge. They had heard that I was one of the best drivers that they had ever worked with. I was surprised. That was one of the best compliments I've ever had in my entire professional life. I'd get the call from the transportation coordinator named Brendan over at the Mobile TV Group, where I had to go down and take a federal drug test, where my urine sample would be in federal custody. I passed the test, and they sent me an American Express corporate card for all my expenses while on the road. Used for incidentals, travel, mechanical repair on the truck, and hotels, lodging, that kind of stuff. There was just one last thing we had to do, was to run my motor vehicle report. During this process, I had informed Brandon that I had a reckless driving from 2.5 years ago. He informed me that that shouldn't be a problem, that I had been working steady for 2.5 years with fantastic references, and he'd get back to me. After I hung up, I felt like I was having a dream. Hello? What? 5 offenses? I can't believe it. I spent $14,000. It was pled down to a reckless driving. I'm really sorry, Brandon. I'll give you a call after it's all straightened out. All right, bye-bye. On April 23rd, 2008, I pled no contest to a reckless driving charge, non-alcohol related. It was entered into the court record and should have reflected exactly what we're looking at here. Very simple. It was the court clerk's job to do a routine data entry process to reflect the correct record of the court. I find it hard to believe that this would be due to inadvertence or error. In fact, I would guess that this was intentional, or somebody hacked my DMV record, completely disregarding the nunc-pro-tunc order from June 19th, 2008, along with the lawyers and the judges and the clerks that worked so hard to defend and correct the record. It appeared to me and my family that both the arrests from 2006 and 2007 were total miscarriages of justice. In November of 2010, I had 2 DUIs and 3 reckless driving convictions, all on the same date of April 23rd, 2008. They did a pull notice and a complete purge of both DUIs and both reckless driving charges that were completely manufactured. November 11th, 2010, my professional career would be destroyed. In this printout, you see 1 through 5 in red. Lines 1 through 4 were purged. Everything in yellow was my attorneys calling and sending letters to get this stuff removed. Circled in red are the dates of communications between my lawyer and the Department of Motor Vehicles. In the bottom left-hand corner, you see the red arrow pointing at the true record. Only 1 count would remain, and on September 29th, 2011, my record would read as such. It took 3.5 years to fix the problem due to inadvertence and clerical error, which was allegedly corrected on June 19th, 2008. I would ultimately walk away feeling completely defrauded by the state of California. And with that, my career was completely wiped out, my 10-year plan completely devastated, and, well, putting myself through pilot school wasn't an option. During this wonderful life lesson, I would end up getting a notice of our plan to sell property from Chase. Their letter stated, "We have your 2006 GMC, the vehicle. Because you broke promises in our agreement, we will sell the vehicle at private sale sometime after March 13th, 2009. Are you kidding me? Really? I never promised anybody a rose garden." Chase would send in another letter with an explanation of calculation of surplus or deficiency. Well, whoop-de-frickin-do, Magoo! They sold the truck for $12,700 and left me hanging with $17,142. Take your truck and stuff it. It was a great truck, but all it did for me was attract the cops. There's an old saying, when life hands you a big bag of lemons, make lemonade. So I joined the men's club at the golf course and started playing golf and drinking beer. I was unemployable. What else was I supposed to do? I lost my shorts. It was tremendous. The birdies are in the trees. I drank beer and hung out with the most interesting man in the world. Life was great. I was broke, couldn't pay my bills, couldn't find a nice girlfriend, get married, buy a house. I was playing golf. Woohoo! It was paradise, a slice of heaven, an oasis for an entire community. When my dad passed away from cancer in 2015, these gentlemen here made sure I had the money for his funeral. What a fantastic group of people. An old friend of mine hooked me up with this job opportunity. It was $16 an hour working for Local 80, a signatory IATSE union shop, where we basically stored everything in a warehouse and kept inventory. A lot of my friends worked for Local 80. They were the grips. I was working alongside guys that were making $40 an hour while I was making $16 an hour. A coworker of mine said, "You need to call up cast and crew and have them run your hours to see if you're eligible to join the big union, the real union. And that's exactly what I did. On August 14th, 2012, I'd get a letter from cast and crew with everything itemized. All my hours, my days. It was fantastic. I could make it to the top and be a grip in Hollywood. It said at the bottom, request is hereby made that, if eligible, this individual be added, upgraded to the appropriate roster and or group. Woohoo! I was stoked. I'd take this letter down to contract services to take the test and sign up and pay my dues, only to find out that this letter and my hours and my days were no good because the words facility maintenance did not show up in their job classification. I'd end up walking away from that fairy tale, never to hear from the employer again. My guess is this letter pissed them all off. More lemons, more lemonade. I started painting houses like when I was 18 years old, climbing ladders and using hand tools and grinders and being dusty and dirty, hot and sweaty. Well, I just didn't care anymore, so I went and drank more beer and played more golf and just was, yay, everything's great. So I went for a drive like I always do to clear my mind, and somehow I ended up upside down in the canyon road. Maybe it was a longhorn sheep that jumped out in front of me. Well, it's all fun and games until the cops show up. Well, look at what we have here. Looks like it's Richard. What are you doing, dude? We heard about you. Blow into this breathalyzer, because if you don't, we're going to take your license for a whole year. All right, officer. You got a deal. You'd be doing me a favor. In 2012, the DMV would take my commercial driver's license away for life for getting a first offender DUI. They'd stamp the back of the license and make sure everyone knew about it. I can't help but wonder how my life would have turned out if I had never been arrested in Los Alamitos for being in possession of a Class A driver's license and a high pulse in a brand new truck. I know one thing for certain. I would have never have been arrested. I would have never have been profiled. I would have never have been in the neighborhood. I would have been on the road in my mobile television bubble, earning a great living and retiring within my 10-year plan and flying helicopters. In 2020, at 54 years old, I still ride skateboards. It keeps me in great shape, keeps my reflexes sharp, quick, mind, body, and tempo. After all that, I haven't been stopped by the cops in almost 8 years. And I'm having the time of my life. On April 19th, 2015, one day before my birthday, my dad would pass away from cancer. I went and visited him in hospice care, brought him ice cream, sat down with him and had a great conversation with him. He asked me, "Did you ever get that trucking thing taken care of?" I said, "No, Dad, that was the craziest thing happened. Let's just say there was a lot of corruption." He shook his head. "Yeah, corruption." Then he asked, "Well, whatever happened to that acting thing you were doing with HBO?" I said, "Well, I guess I took another path." He looked up at me and said, "Oh, another path, my ass. Think of all the talented people you could be working with. You should get back into that." I said, "That's a good idea. I'm SAG eligible. Maybe I'll join a rock and roll band." He said, "Oh, yeah?" I said, "Yeah, I kind of got this song."
1, 2, 3, 4. Richard doesn't sing in the band. Richard doesn't play any golf. No, no, no. He doesn't have a good job. No. Richard, look for this one. Oh, Richard. Go, Richard, yeah. Richard. He's done. Yeah! Richard doesn't have a hot chick. Richard never ever gets laid. Hey. Richard never gets paid. Hey. Richard never gets laid. Hey. More, Richard. Keep going. Keep going. Richard always sings in the band. Richard always uses his hand. Richard doesn't think it's funny. Richard owes me money. Richard! Big Blue Rainer! Now, Big Blue Rainer!
Thanks, Richard! We want to think. Fucking
Dick Richard.
What a dick!
His name's Dick Richard. I wouldn't want to be that guy.